Okay, so welcome everybody to the Yamaha Super Tank Fishing Show. Star performers are the barramundi. As you can see, they're around about 1 to 1.2, 1.3 kilos. They're about 12 months old. They do grow fairly large in the wild. They can grow upwards of about 3 kilos a year, and I've personally seen them to about 45 kilos. So pretty serious fish. The very first lure I'd like to show you is something that is called a super frog. As you can see, it looks just like a real frog. It'll float up on the surface. So if you're chasing freshwater fish like cod, yellowbelly, bass, Saratoga, also barramundi, a frog like that you'll catch a lot of fish morning and afternoon when the fish are actively feeding on the surface. So cast this frog out in the water, land it right on that last bubbler. If we do have active fish, they'll come up and they'll bite that frog off the surface. If they're not so active, I need to work that frog back and make it look like a real frog. So you've got to think, how does a frog swim? If I was to wind it back like this, brrr, like it's powered by Yamaha, chances are not too many fish are going to be quick enough to catch it. So what I need to do is slow it down. Cast it out, land it with a splat. Rod tip down, drag it towards my feet twice. You see that frog kick in a gear like this. Kick, kick, let it sit. Kick, kick, let it sit. Kick, 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 let it sit. Now obviously the best shows the ones where the fish bite the lures. And the sooner that happens, the better I'm going to like it and less nervous I'm going to be. So just slow down a bit, see if we can get these fish to bite the frog. Kick, kick, come on fellas, it's up there, see the frog. That's it, eat the frog, kick, kick, come on fellas, we've been practicing 2 days now. Eat the frog, kick, oh here comes one, kick. Maybe this one right up here, kick, kick, kick. Kick, 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 kick. Now you can see the fish were sort of interested in that particular frog, and we do catch a lot of fish on that particular lure. Now you might have heard me talking to the fish. I was calling them fellas. Just so happens that every fish in this tank is male. I know this not because I checked them out before I put them in the water, but all barramundi are actually all born male, and it's not until they get over a certain size they turn into a higher form of being, which is called females. Works for me, fellas. At this stage, girls, you're supposed to be giving me a small round of applause, making sure I got it right. Thank you very much, girls. Now, I could probably keep on persevering and throwing that frog in the water. Chances are they're not going to respond. So what I'll need to do is change to a smaller lure and sink it down to where the fish are. The next lure should do that. It is something that is called a super frog. Now it's a little bit smaller than the last one, so we call this guy Junior. It would normally fight on the surface, but I have got a little bit of a lead weight on there. I'm going to sink Junior down to where the fish would normally be. So cast it out right on that last bubbler and let it slowly sink down. If I do have active fish, they should come up and grab that lure. I only need one active fish and they'll bite it. If they're not so active, I need to crawl that frog again down in the depths, and bang, I've got the fish to bite it. So again, work it nice and slow. Already got that one bite just off close to this bottom. Let it slowly sink back down. The more fish that you have in the area, the more chance you are of actually getting the fish to bite. Work it just nice and steady all the way back to your feet. Again, you can see how those fish are responding to that lure. Nice and slow. Once we get down to where there's a few more fish, I'm sure we'll get a few more bites too, guys. Again, normally you'd be fishing from the opposite side, fishing back this way. Then maybe, bang, we get a short strike like that. Work it nice and slow again until, bang, we've got a bite. So a big round of applause for the world's only trained and performing fish. Come on, you guys. How do you think I trained them up? Big round of applause. So that little frog like that, working down in the depths, morning and afternoon, leave it up on the surface. Middle of the day, get it down to the depths. Again, crawl it through the shadows. A lot of times you'll catch a lot better fish. Trout, cod, yellowbelly, bass, Saratoga, all on that particular frog. Now, a lot of times when we say we're going fishing though, we're usually talking about using a more conventional style lure. This next lure is something that is called a hard-body diving lure. It's made out of hard plastic, quite often they're made out of timber. It's got a clear lip on the front of it which governs how deep that lure will dive. Again, cast this lure out in the water and wind it slow. If you do have active fish, quite often they'll just come up and they'll grab it. So again, cast it right on that last bubbler and wind it slow. I'll make a bit bigger cast. Again, I don't want to go too far. I only want to go near that last bubbler. Again. So let it sit. Wind it slow. If you do have active fish, they'll bite it. If they're not so active, stop the retrieve and then twitch your rod tip like this. Let it sit, and then twitch your rod tip. And then twitch the rod tip. A lot of times what will happen is the fish will come up and have a look at that lure. Then as the lure goes to move away, the fish will react. You can see how fast that fish reacted to that lure. And that is called an aggressive reaction strike. Well, I thought I got a bite, but I can't hear anybody clapping down there. Oh, that's right, I must have had a bite, thank you. Okay, let it go, bad fish. So, again, wind the lure down to the depth. A lot of times the fish will follow in behind it. You'll see the really good lure casting anglers all the time twitching the rod tip. So that way, if you do have a following fish, as the lure goes to bust away, those fish will automatically grab it. And again, that's what we call an aggressive reaction strike. Now, not always are the fish going to be that active. And I was talking to a very smart man yesterday. He said to me, mate, you seem to know a fair bit about fishing. I said, well, I know a little bit. He said, do you know that fish only bite twice a day? Now, I thought that was really unusual. I said, when's that, sir? He said, usually an hour before I get there and an hour just after I leave. And I thought to myself, now for most of us, that's pretty true. But this next lure can change the odds in your favour. It is something that is called a vibration lure or a rattler. It has a hollow body filled with ball bearings. So it simulates a whole school of bait fish in distress. Cast this lure out in the water if you do have active fish. Cast it out in the water and wind it fast like this. You should be able to hear it. So it's quite a noisy lure. Again, if you're chasing salmon or tailor or skippies, cast this lure out, wind it fast. If the fish aren't that active, slow the retrieve down. Cast it out. If you're chasing brim or flathead, maybe even snapper, mulloway, just wind it slow and every now and then just tick the rod tip like that. You can see how those fish can feel that lure coming through the water. If you don't get a bite, say within 10 to 15, 20 casts, just keep on moving along. But sometimes the fish will sit in one spot. They won't move for a lure or a bait. When that happens, drop the lure down in the water and rip it up and down like this. Now that noisy lure should drive those fish mad. And it could bring out an aggressive response in the fish. In much the same way as the kids got a hold of this lure, they're doing this in front of the TV while the grand final of footy's on. My place, immediate aggressive response. So depending on how aggressive the fish are, how patient the angler is, to how long you do this for. Now, if I don't get a bite, say within 10 minutes, don't move. If you've woken those fish up, maybe all you have to do is change to a different lure. Put that different lure straight back on. If you have got active fish, we might get a bite. So I quickly change over. Drop that lure down in the same spot. If I have got active fish, we might get a bite. So just drop it down in the water just like that. Let it drop right down. And now I'm just going to lift it slowly up. And bang, we got that bite. Another bite. Another bite. Waiting for the applause, guys. And another bite. Okay. So that really is a neat trick. One, you must show bigger rattlers down there. But if you're chasing smaller fish, if you're chasing fish like brim or flathead, maybe trout or bass, this next rattler will do the job. It's one of the hot new lures on the market at the moment. It's got a small body, it's hollow, and it's got one little bead in there. So if you're fishing over the top of shallow weed beds, or maybe shallow drop-offs, cast this lure out, wind it slow. If you do have active fish, they'll feel that lure, they'll come in aggressively to grab it. So again, cast that lure right on that last bubbler, and wind it slow. It's amazing how far a fish of that size will follow a small lure like that, and bang, we got the bite. Again, you can see that same fish is coming back time and time again. 3 bites, 1 cast, no applause. I will beg, guys. Again, a great lure. So you can see also how aggressive that fish come up and grab that lure. It really did think it's a bait fish to try to kill it. Now, sometimes though, the fish might stage at different depths and you're not sure what depth they're going to be at. We use a technique called the lift-drop technique. So cast it out, we lift it up, and we let it slowly drop. So that way the lure will actually get to all those depths. You'll find that when the fish are there, they'll come up and they'll bite it almost like a bait, so they'll hold it in their mouth. So cast this lure out again, same spot. Now lift, and then drop. When I get the bite, it'll be more timid. The fish will move in and they'll bite that lure, pull it in their mouth, they'll have slack line. So lift it up, and then let it slowly sink back down. Again, just nice and slow. Boom. Now I've got the fish to bite that lure, I've got slack line, I can hook that fish at any time. So take up that slack line and bang, I've got that fish on. So again, a lot of times when you're fishing in different depths of water, you might not be sure what depth the fish are at. Okay, let it go. Let it slowly sink down, lift and drop. When the fish bite it, it'll just go bite like that, the line will just go tick and then nothing. Take up that slack line and bang, the fish are on. Again, one of the new lures on the market. Great lure, you won't forget its name, it's called a 1-inch wonder. There's about 5 or 6 different colours of these guys and they're available in our little tent. Now, another series of lures we use are something that are called soft plastics. Now if you're teaching a junior angler how to fish, or maybe just travelling around and you're chasing brim, flathead, trout, bass, this little guy's the one for you. We've got a pack which is called an experience pack. a couple of different colours and a couple of different styles available downstairs. Now, imagine the fish are actively feeding right up on the surface. Maybe something like, maybe salmon. Then cast this lure out in the water, wind it back faster like this. You can see that lure looks just like a little fleeing bait fish as it zaps its way across the top of the water. And those guys are way too slow. If the fish aren't that active, they might be sitting a little bit deeper, more in that mid-level of water, then slow it down. Cast it out, wind it slow, and then just tick the rod tip like this. You'll find the fish will usually school up behind that lure. Then all you need is that one active fish to break out of the school. They'll come up and they'll grab it. So just keep on moving it all the way along like that. You see how, again, eventually those fish will come up and they'll grab it. Thank you very much, madam. You can come back to the next show. Now, if you're chasing one of my favourite fish, which happens to be the flathead. Now, I love flathead, not because they're the prettiest fish in the world, but I know where they live all the time. I like eating flathead as well. So if I'm targeting flathead, they live right on the bottom all the time. Cast this lure out in the water, let it sink all the way to the bottom. When the lure hits the bottom, lift it up and let it sink. Next time you go to lift up, feels like there's weed on there, go to shake the weed off and bang, you catch the fish. If you don't hook the fish, let it sink down again. Lift it up again, feels like there's weed on there, hook the fish. So hop that lure all the way back to your feet. So hop it slowly back. You can make several casts like this. If you don't get a bite to catch a fish, don't recast. Just keep moving further along. You cover a lot of ground, give yourself a chance to catch a lot more active fish. And again, they're called an experience pack. It's about 6 different colours, all in the one box, a couple of different leadhead jigs, and again, available just in our little tent. We have one more lure to show you. And obviously we're going to keep the best to last. Now, I will let you know that we are here, obviously, because the field days have brought us down, but without the help of Brown Wig and also Bushman's, we wouldn't be here, guys. So if you have got any business here to be done today, and these guys can help you out, please go and help them, and they'll support us as well in turn. They're a good bunch of guys, and they are your local guys too, so make sure you go and have a bit of a talk to the boys from Brown Wig. The very last lure, it is called a Super Blade. Now, this is the hottest new lure on the market. It has a clear polycarbonate body, so it's fairly transparent. Lead weight on the front, it casts like a bullet. When I cast this lure out and wind it back slow, it sends out just the right amount of vibration that if you do have active fish, I don't care what type they are, they'll come up and grab this lure. Now, a lot of the guys have been winning the brim tournaments with this guy. Their biggest complaint, catches way too many flathead. Not a bad problem to have. I'll take all the flathead they don't want. Now, cast this lure out in the water. I'll give you 2 different retrieves in one. If the fish are active, cast this lure out in the water, cast like a bullet, wind it fast. If the fish aren't so active, stop the retrieve. Let it slowly glide to the bottom. Once it hits the bottom, let it sit. Now lift it up quickly. Gets the fish's attention, let it slowly glide back down. Lift it up and let it slowly glide back down. You can see how those fish are responding to that lure as it slowly glides back down. Lift it up. You see that fish had a bit of a quick snap at it. Let it slowly glide back down. Now, a lot of times, we'll drift along in our boat, and you can see how that fish just picked that lure up off the bottom. Again, lift it up. That gets the fish's attention. As it slowly glides back down, those fish are going to come in and grab it. Again, as I said before, that is the hot new lure on the market. It is called a Super Blade. They are handmade here in Australia, not mass-produced overseas, which is a really good change. And it's like all the other products you've seen up here, they are available in our little tent. If you need any help or information on how to rig this gear up, colours will work best in the area, please come over and say hi. That does conclude the Yamaha Super Tank Fishing Show, folks. A small round